witches, how you doing today? We're back for another video, and today we're going to talk a little bit about living publicly as a witch and sort of the benefits to the entire community thereof. This comes from a conversation I had in the comment section the other day, and somebody had basically just said how it was shocking when they decided to publicly live as a witch that so many people they knew were like, oh my gosh, me too. And some of them were like, oh, I don't really tell people, but me too. And how it was so kind of affirming to have those, all those interactions that sort of happen when you start to live publicly. And I think there are just some really big benefits to the community when those who can live publicly choose to do so. So for those of you who are new around here, my name is Taya. Welcome to the channel. We talk about all things witchcraft here. And for those of you who are returning viewers, maybe coming in from another video, welcome back. I appreciate the support, and all of you, please consider subscribing. It's a really great way to help us build the channel. So, first of all, I want to preface this by saying I'm not saying that everyone should live publicly as a witch. Okay? I get it. There are circumstances where some people cannot safely do so. Especially there are places where they could be let go from their work, maybe they're having a custody battle, and right, they're just not able to be public. And I 100% support that. Okay? My argument is those people who could live publicly should, because there are a lot of people out there who could but choose not to. And so here's 6 reasons why I think that those who could live publicly should. First of all, first 2 points are about normalizing witchcraft. The first point is that it goes to show that it's not just the weirdos. You know, it's not just a bunch of wackadoos who are like, hee 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 hee. And the second point is it goes to normalize again in that we're not Satan worshiping baby eaters, you know? And what happens is when you start living publicly, all of a sudden when my neighbor hears something about witchcraft, she doesn't think, bunch of weirdos. Or she doesn't think, oh, Satan worshipping baby eaters, right? She goes, oh yeah, my next door neighbor. It normalizes witchcraft. It gives a face to what witchcraft is. Hello, Luna. And I think that is one of the most key things to remember when thinking about living publicly, is that it will normalize what witchcraft is. And then point number 3 is it then becomes so much less dangerous for other people to live publicly, right? Because all of a sudden there's all these examples around of normal middle-class suburb moms who are like, I'm a witch. All right. Number 4, there is a great sense of relief that comes from living your life authentically. Now, I was never I have to hide the fact that I'm a witch, but I never talked about it, right? I was never upfront about it. And there is just this great relief that comes from not having to worry about it. Not having to worry about who did I tell and who didn't I tell. I'm just myself. When somebody asks me, what did you do on the weekend? I'm like, oh, we had a bonfire for Letha. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sabbats. And then I give them a chance to ask a question, right? And it's just so much easier to just be myself. Number 5 is building community, making new friends. I mean, right? You want to meet people who are like you need to be public about who you are. And I have to say, I have been shocked over the last, I've been publicly a witch for many years, in that I wasn't actually actively hiding it, but publicly a witch, it goes on my Instagram, it goes on my Facebook, I started a guild, I advertise classes I teach. That, in the year since I've started doing that, or a year and a half since I've started doing that, I can't believe the number of people who've come into my life, people that maybe I knew from working with previously or acquaintances, etc., who are like, oh my gosh, me too, can you add me to that guild you have? And it's like, oh, that's so exciting, I just made another witchy friend. And finally, number 6 is what it does is it stops the gossip. and it gives people an opportunity to ask a question. When you're maybe witchy, but you're not out about it, people are like, psh, psh, psh. I don't know, she's kind of weird. Whereas when you're out about it, people can say, oh, what's that about? I have literally had somebody phone me, somebody that I used to work with, phone me on the telephone and say, hey, listen, I saw you advertising that you're teaching witchcraft. I'm like, what is that about? And I'm like, well, what do you want to know? And she's just like, well, do you like do spells and stuff? And I was like, yeah, heck yeah. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, let me explain to you how that works. And we had a great conversation. And I got to like stop the gossip and just let her, she was comfortable to call and ask me because she knew that I was like public about it. It wasn't some secret thing where she's like, well, I heard she's a witch, but I don't want to like, I don't want to freak her out because, maybe she isn't, like, yeah, I was just open about it, and it gave somebody an opportunity to ask a question instead of making assumptions and gossiping and all that. So basically, there are huge benefits to the witchcraft community as a whole when those of us who can do. When those of us who can live publicly, do live publicly. Is it easy? No, it's not, guys. And is it scary? Yeah, a little bit. I had no idea how people would react. One of my best friends is a hardcore Alliance Church Christian, sends her kids to private Christian school, very like involved in her church, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, always in the back of my mind, I'm like, she's a really good friend. And in the back of my mind, I was always like, but if she knew that about me, would we still be really great friends? And it was funny, after when I was switching jobs, she asked me, well, what are you going to do after this, right? When you're done this job you're at. And I said, I'm going to teach witchcraft. And it's the first time I'd ever said the word witchcraft to her. And she went, I can totally see you doing that. That sounds like a good fit. And all of a sudden it went from, we're friends, but what if she knew this about me, to, oh, yeah, we really are friends. And if she had said something negative, I would have been like, see, yeah, okay, maybe we weren't really friends after all. But she wasn't. She was lovely and supportive, and it was really, really cool. So is it scary? Yeah. But you know what? It's so worth it. No part of my life is hidden or off limits. I don't have to self-censor. And if people don't like it, they're not my people. I've never had anybody get up in my face about it and be rude and like, oh, I'm going to try to convert you to Christianity or whatever. I'm sure there's people in my life who don't like it. And you know what? They've all just faded off into the background. If they don't like it, they're just not my people, and that's okay. So I have another video I'm going to post in the description. It's about coming out of the broom closet, and I'll link it down below in the description. One note about that. So at the time I called it coming out of the broom closet, and I've stopped using that phrase, coming out of the broom closet, with respect to our LGBTQIA plus community. I've chosen to call it living publicly because I don't feel right about co-opting this idea of coming out of the closet. Quite frankly, I know that we do have some very Bible Belt areas in North America, but for the most part, nobody's life is put at risk for coming out as a witch. But coming out as LGBTQIA, they face some very real, very violent discrimination. And so I don't feel comfortable saying coming out of the broom closet anymore. I actually had somebody call me on it and said, hey, like I had to come out and what you're doing isn't the same. They said, I see where you get the parallels, but it's not the same, and here's why. And I agree. So I know better now, so I'll do better now. So that's why I've chosen to call it living publicly. So my old video is titled that way, but I wouldn't personally use that turn of phrase anymore. So check it out. Anyways, if you're a little bit curious about how to live publicly without walking around announcing to everybody, oh, by the way, I'm a witch, because that's a little awkward, right? So how do you start to live publicly? It's a great little video. So definitely check that one out. And otherwise, that's our video for today. And we will catch you in the next one. Mwah! Thanks so much for hanging out, you guys.